Welcome to Concrete Conversations, the Indian Real Estate Podcast. I'm Yash.
And I'm Akshay, and we're the hosts of the show. In the last 2 decades, Indian real estate has gone through several transformations. We have seen the markets opening up to FDI, the entry of IPCs, the emergence of large-scale Grade A commercial real estate, systemic regulatory changes such as RERA, and most recently, the securitization and commoditization of real estate with fractional ownership, REITs and AIFs, just to name a few. This means that developers need to be extremely dynamic and responsive to change if they wish to endure the challenges that this ever-evolving landscape throws at them.
We have with us today Mr. Angad Singh Bedi, Managing Director of BCD Group, a 70-year-old construction company with experience in a vast variety of sectors from hospitality to infrastructure in India and abroad. Mr. Bedi started his career as a chartered accountant with reputed consulting firms like KPMG and PWC, working in mergers and acquisitions, taxation, restructuring and more before joining his family business. In the recent years, the group's footprint has risen to above 60 million square feet with projects across verticals such as luxury as well as middle to lower income housing. They are now working to establish a 1,500 crore real estate AIF or alternative investment fund specializing in economically stressed projects along with Nisus Finance. In this episode, Mr. Bedi sheds light on current market trends, fundraising through the AIF model, and working with economically stressed assets.
So without further ado, get ready for some concrete conversations. Angad, welcome to Concrete Conversations, and good morning to you. How is your day going so far?
Thanks, Akshay. Hi, Yash. Good day to you. All is well. It's a bright, sunny morning here in Bangalore after about a good fortnight. We've seen a clear day ahead, so good to catch up.
Absolutely. Great to hear that. Nice to hear that you're seeing good weather. And speaking of good weather, I know there's a lot of good news that we have to cover within our conversation, and we have several themes planned out. But let's take it back to the genesis, I think, to set the context for our listeners. Could you tell us a little bit about your career history, how you got involved in real estate, and what the story is of BCD Group and where you fit into that story?
So, Akshay, BCD is a 7-decade-old construction organization, basically going back almost pre-partition days.
Wow.
And it's a legacy of almost 4th generation coming forward. And some iconic buildings across the country, some key landmarks have been built by the group over these past few decades. And the spaces, they have been very interesting. They're one of the only groups who have, from steel plants to power plants to hotels to courts to residential complex, and globally also 6 to 7 countries, they've covered a large square footage. So when I joined, I'm a chartered accountant by profession, and when I was training with PWC and KPMG back in 2005, Granddad said that somebody needs to take the reins forward because this legacy is unparalleled to anybody has in the country, and we truly believe that construction and real estate is the key factor which will propel GDP growth, the whole economic development of the country. So putting that vision and saying that, this has been a steadfast company without debt who has carried forward execution year on year without any failures. He got me and roped me early in the day when I was in my teenage years to train me, to bring me around the country from different cities, tier 2 cities, wherever we were operating. And somewhere around 2005 and 6, my heart set on Bangalore as a destination per se. Right. Seeing the weather, the climate, seeing it as a cosmopolitan city.
Right.
So Delhi, Bombay have always been at the forefront, but I saw the emerging opportunity here down south a larger way than what it was in north. Right. So that helped me come in over here in Bangalore, make a foothold. We signed up a couple of projects, and we started with what you call as a mixed-use development. Back in the day, that was a big trend. Right. That is a commercial and a residential development coming in together in one format and, intrinsically being linked in one project. And interesting times at that point of time, there were, international clients. There was an era where Trump was wanting to come into India. The entire FDI market was breaking through. An Indian market, I somewhere feel, was transgressing from the normal 2 BHK, 3 BHK format apartments into a way more evolved real estate market.
Right.
That's when I realized, today something which we are witnessing is this work from home concept. In fact, it was 2014 where I did my first small work from home concept. It was a tower, basically where you had an apartment on the left and your office or a room across the hall on the corridor.
Wow.
So that was a IT sort of a thing which came in, and it just has picked up fire because of this pandemic as a concept.
Okay.
Right.
So we basically try to see the trends out in the market to understand what the need is going to be and evolve that into a product strategy. And construction has been our forte. To deliver that asset into a quality one is something which has been core with the organization of about 5,000 to 6,000 people running it day in, day out. So I see real estate as a opportunity for India, which is, I think, on the tip of golden decade, and it's the first year or second year in. We are yet to hit that run. I mean, Russia's had it, China's had it, US has had it. I think India is just on the start of it. There is a huge opportunity out here. There is a huge demand out there for the housing.
Right.
So we worked across, the entire country in terms of construction. We're doing refineries, we're doing tech parks, we're doing factories. But where my heart lies is, getting the end user something which they're not seen in the market. Very excited to tell that one of the largest senior living concept on a rental exchange model. That means that we're putting up a product out there where the senior citizens can actually come and rent, wherein today they're compelled to buy and own, and that's a capital intensive nature.
Right.
So we're working in the last stage, and it's almost up and ready, and then we'll be going live in about a month or so with people coming in and moving in. And these are things we decided that, when we want an old person to come in, we don't want him to tie him down with him to get involved in buying an asset and being, booked into that place itself. So the rental model gives him flexibility. Tomorrow he wants to be in the city, he can be in the city, and he can move out and exit and close the rents and go out. That facility on a lower rental model is something general population gets very attracted to, with at-par facilities at any other thing which they're getting. So these are things which we see from the market, what is the need coming out from the consumers, and try building it back into the construction profile as well as our development profile to see we are engaging very, very closely with our consumers.
Right.
Right. And something interesting that you mentioned, Angad, was that India could be on the precipice of another golden run when it comes to real estate markets. And since you have such a breadth of experience, I thought that it would be prudent to ask you the possible reasons behind this golden run. Why do you think that real estate in India is now well placed to have a good run for a number of years?
So Yash, I think India, not only in real estate, I think India as a country is poised to hit the golden decade starting now. It all forms. I mean, I'm talking about all industries. I'm talking about as a country, as the full GDP format of it, not just limited to real estate. Real estate definitely being one of the key contributors to it.
Right.
Having said that, real estate per se as an industry has, it's not a secret that past decade has been extremely challenging. When US hit the 2008 crisis, India was still holding its head high till 2013.
Right.
But after that, various regulatory changes, all the statutory changes, the markets tilting over in terms of the NBFC crisis, which is looming large, and negativity which was brought and built up over a period of time into the sectors, which just made the customers wary of the whole thing. This, I would feel, has led to a pent-up demand out there for about 6 to 7 years, where really no launches have happened.
Right.
Back in the day, I don't know if you guys would have noticed, the news would only cover, media would only cover inventory overhang,
Right.
supply versus demand.
Yeah.
Today I can personally confidently say that if there is a ready apartment or a ready unit or a ready product, there is nothing known as an overhang. It's sold out. It's gone. In fact, from Bombay and all, people who are recruiting there and sending their team to Bangalore or anywhere else, they're saying, go find out your housing needs, buddy. Don't come back and tell me that you went to the new place and you're not able to sort out your own accommodation. That's the sort of demand which is kicked in all the metropolitan cities across India, where people coming in.
Right.
What's the first thing the person wants to do after they have money? They want to buy. They either want to buy their own car, they want to buy their own house, they want to buy. The first thing to naturally, Indian mentality, the first thing is go upgrade your phone. That's a
Right.
thing that we just naturally tend to do of. But these three things, that's why there is a huge market being built out there for which it has to be catered as well.
Right.
As private developers, as private individuals, as responsible citizens, we too have to do our bit to provide housing in that segment.
Right.
Based on that, we've launched certain products which are in the range of 25 to 30 lakh rupees. And trust me, before we have even opened the bookings out, there is a line out there of people saying that yes, we want to buy that.
Wow.
That means the demand of that price point where people can afford it is absolutely, phenomenal.
Right. I completely agree with you there, Angad. I think, aspirational home buyers, like you said, I think it's going to and is a huge market in India. And we're seeing this, like you said, with the interest people have shown in affordable housing.
Absolutely. I think that's a very strong point over there, Angad. And I think building on what you're saying, we're talking a lot about the development aspect and regulatory landscape of real estate in India. But obviously, one of the things we're seeing even more prevalent in the recent times, especially after regulations like RERA came in 2016, is the commoditization of real estate and real estate assets. We're talking about REITs, we're talking about AIFs, we're talking about fractional ownership. So there are many things coming in on the private equity side, many models on the public equity side. We wanted to ask you specifically about AIFs. We had another guest on our podcast who's recently launched an AIF. We had an AIF launch in the Indian market last year as well. Is there any reason behind the AIF model becoming so popular for real estate funds?
So I would say that as yes and no. I mean, AIF is a way of raising capital and getting it out there, but not everybody can do it. It has to be specially handled, understood. There are laws which govern it. It's under the guidelines of SEBI. So unless you're very proficient on the whole thing, how they are run, how they're operated, what is the end goal? I mean, I just hope it's not one of the things where, it's a new terminology and everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon like it was real estate a decade back.
Right.
So non-core assets which were not into your business models at all, people would say, okay, fine, real estate is out there and let's just start that real estate vertical. So it's a extremely technical nature of raising capital from the markets and then deploying it and running the books. And we too have partnered to come up with our own AIF in this year, which is going to be one of the largest stressed asset ones. Having said that, but the fund manager and our partner who is running it has been doing it for over 2 decades, the same business right when it was launched.
Right.
And because you're raising money from the capital markets and from individual retail owners, you need to know what you're really doing with it. Ultimately, how you're deploying the capital, how it is getting utilized, how that money is going to convert something into an end product as a real estate. One thing this industry has not learned the lesson that if you're not an absolute professional at it, do not do it. Because how we have transformed is, be it as doctors, lawyers, engineers, they're certified. I mean, there is a license which gives it. Real estate and AIF is something one can do. But typically today, only professionals and somebody with a clean-cut understanding of the laws and the markets will be able to survive this way of operating these things.
Right. You just mentioned someone who understands the laws and regulations of this market. Could you also elaborate on whether you think it's important for investors to know that, or they need to just be sure that the fund that they're looking at, the people running the fund, know that?
Absolutely. I mean, I am, on the stock market of it, it's something I'm a chartered accountant, but I don't understand because we are playing on numbers of trajectory of somebody else's company growth.
Right.
In terms of a P&L going plus or minus and the EBITDAs and the PE numbers based on which you have a valuation and your money can go up and down. Whereas when you're talking about a REIT, when you're talking about an AIF, you're talking about funds, you're talking about as a consumer, as an investor into real estate, it is tied down to land and a commodity which is tangible, monetizable, and real in every sense of the thing, back-ended. So there is no value which can be eroded, because fundamentally land and the asset has an eternal value. Now we can differentiate on the number, we can say the price points can differ, but the value can never go out, because it's not a business based asset. It's like after gold, land is the second solid most asset in the world.
Right, physical asset.
Yes, so if any money is going and getting tied as intrinsically being linked to something in the end which you own, either as a fractional ownership or as a floor plate or as a strata or as owning an AIF fund, which in turns will be holding the real estate, or as a REIT, which internally you own as a REIT, investment into the REIT, and then the REIT owns the asset which is giving a return. So even if the return is not coming as a rental, the REIT owns that asset.
Right.
So you're never fundamentally at risk.
Right.
So I would say this is the best asset class in terms of having your investment secure, at least. It may not give you phenomenal returns, which an equity can or cannot give you, and it says that equities do over a period of time, but a year-on-year yield, which this assets yield out to you, with a security that your principal capital is secured, I would say it's fundamentally the best investment on the earth. I would not risk or think of anything else but this.
Right.
And then, real estate has its way of giving it back to you as well, because the multiplier which comes in capital appreciation over a period of half a decade or a decade, I mean, that just changes the game over equity any day. So you have a yield and you have a chance of a multiplier for a capital appreciation as well, which is something you can't time. So it's a long-term horizon, no doubt. It's not a easy out, but I would say that everybody should have significant allocation of their capital into these modes. So then that becomes of understanding, you want to buy it directly, you want to hold it indirectly, you want to hold it through a REIT. That's your individual perception about understanding something, but ultimately the end product is the same. It's either a commercial asset or it's a residential asset. Then there is a location story on it, and there is an end use story on it. Who's actually using it? What is going to happen in the micro market? Will it come up and down? And the various factors are right there for you to make your own deliberated call as a layman as well. I mean, you don't need to have rocket science to understand that part of the thing. Only you just need to give it a thought.
Right. And just to, kind of go back to something you had mentioned, was that, your AIF will be looking at stressed assets. And I just wanted to, for the clarification of our listeners also, kind of get an understanding from you of what this business model of acquiring stressed assets is. And I know that, you guys are looking at this at scale in the Bangalore market. So any, again, reasons behind why Bangalore was the place to do this?
So Yash, I think stress assets is a position. It's not Bangalore, it's a pan-India situation.
Right.
This situation, why this word is coming as the word stress asset, I mean, asset is always an asset, but it isn't stress, is because of multiple reasons which have happened over a period of a decade, with either promoters being leveraged, with banks not releasing the funds, with NBFCs,
right,
to the biggest in the country having closed down and, hit the roadblock. People not being able to convert their real estate into end use in the time frame they thought they would be able to. The laws changes, like you rightly mentioned, RERA came in, then GST got evolved, and
right,
we had, after demonetization, changes in the whole system about how things are operated, as well as, the governance has all changed, bringing it a halt into, everybody looking inward into their business to see how, you make the framework compliant to the laws. So people were taking a step back, and then COVID hit, and COVID has, though, derailed projects. This situation became a large scenario built onto projects and promoters pan-India. And pan-India, across the country, there are larger micro markets like the NCR, MMR, and somewhere across, promoters are stuck, and the projects are stuck for various reasons.
Right.
Now, unless the asset is converted into keys and it's an unbuilt concrete lying out there,
right,
it is not going to have really tangible value. it creates a situation that it becomes a negative liability for the promoter running a risk of having to pay RERA interest, the consumer not being able to get their homes,
Right.
the investors' money getting piled on, in the books and the banks and the NBFC's numbers getting piled on where they don't see an exit. Because unless sales happen, nothing is going to happen.
Right.
And sales are not going to happen because if the confidence in the project is gone, people are just looking at each other to find out a way. Now, when it's like what you say is a standoff and nobody's blinking first, I thought this was the right opportunity for us to step in as professionals, as with a fund, with a capital size of say 500,000 crores, which you'll raise, which can solve a problem about 7 to 8,000 crores worth of assets getting turned around.
Right.
Because unless somebody puts the first leg in to say, yes, we are coming in, we are on board, we are taking over this project, we're going to handle the construction, we're going to handle the financial institutions which are stuck, we're going to go to the customers with their grievances, we are going to, sort out their issues, we're going to bring everybody back on board together to say, hey, it's a joint effort, let's get it done right. And unless somebody's spearheading, and we touch wood with a brand and a reputation out there, when we come and step in, people hear that and people tend to listen to it.
Right.
So the situation which is being built across the country, with the government also releasing this Swami Fund, which is a government initiative to solve the problems, because housing needs to be provided. And today there are projects which are stuck at late stages. Buildings are built up, there's not capital to complete it, there is not technical expertise to turn it around quickly. People have not been able to get the consumers' confidence back into the game. People's business has been shut for a year, 2 years, and it's just been downhill there. So I see a phenomenal opportunity there as professionals to turn around these assets into a positive end goal.
Right.
So it solves basically 5 things: consumer get their homes, the investor gets their money out, the banks get an exit, the promoter gets saved from RERA, and generally there is development happening in the country which is required to be done from a plain vanilla greenfield stage, which will take half a decade. If these assets can be converted out, it will be on a faster stage.
Right. And that does make sense, and because this is such a convoluted issue so many times with projects like these, it does make complete sense that you guys can bring your experience to the table. I think, Angad, we've covered so many different facets of the development business, but I thought that given your unique position and, exposure to different asset classes and innovations, I thought that this would be a good question to ask you. If we were to take a step back and look at all this innovation we're seeing in the residential space, like you mentioned a rental model for senior living, you mentioned student housing, you mentioned co-living, mixed use developments. So looking forward into the future, as you said, your developers try to see what they can provide to consumers that's different. So are there any standout verticals or standout formats that you see within the residential space that will be big, or that have a lot of scope going forward?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this was a trend which we've done and executed, but the coming decade, I see real estate sizes being pushed up back to which they came down in the middle towards the smaller formats. And we see better planning of utilities and areas. They were generically planned floor plates. Now what we are doing is, my team is right now in the process of launching another township, about 2,000 apartments near the Bangalore airport, where we are carefully, each and every unit, there is a thought being given to. Because we don't just want to make a building, we want to make it, say, 2,000 homes for 2,000 buyers. And then what would they actually need in terms of the amenities and the details which the asset class proposes or owns to have over there in terms of a customer. Those basis planning is very important today. And where we are seeing the trend moving it is people are ready to buy, people want to spend up, people want to move out from that ready to move in to ready to live in, fully fitted out homes,
Right.
It's like the apartment is there, you don't want to just move in, and then you're stuck. Because after coming in to you start living there, there's always a big gap. And then, there are people living in the building, there are timeline issues. So what we are calling it is as a la carte concept.
Right.
What we're going to be offering, because we don't want to, that's something our consumers and our customers will have the benefit, because we are backward integrated in all aspects,
Right.
that they will start reaching out to us when they buy a space, that how their end home is going to be during the course of the execution of the project. Their home also gets evolved and planned off and done by us.
Right.
So when they're coming in, it's not a ready to move in, it's a ready to live in. So you just come in with your suitcase, you just unpack into your cupboard, and you're sleeping there tonight. That's Ghar Pravesh.
Right.
So ultimately, people don't have the time, people don't have the bandwidth, people are busy with their own lives. COVID has given mind space shrinkage to so many people that, they don't want to waste it on unwanted times. They realize that life is short, time is in hand, is a most essential commodity, and we don't want to break sweat over things which you don't require to be breaking sweat over.
Right.
So at least in our industry, we thought of through from that angle, and then we said, why not provide everything of every nature which any consumer regarding real estate requires to be done, and we contribute our part to do our share for it.
Perfect. I think that's a lovely note to bring this conversation full circle on. Angad, that takes our time that we have with you for today, but we just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to join us on this podcast, and we really enjoyed speaking with you. I'm sure the listeners will enjoy listening to our conversation as well.
Absolutely. Thanks to Akshay and you that we are connecting, and we've got a chance to do this, and it gets a lot of thoughts out. And we're living in interesting times, and today the mode of communication has changed as well. How we evolve our thinking and how we see things and how we communicate. So it's good that we're sitting in different time zones and different time, and yet we're all together on this note.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow Concrete Conversations on Instagram to know more about upcoming episodes and for some behind-the-scenes content.
For more deep dives into the world of Indian real estate, stay tuned for more Concrete Conversations.